Okay, so thank you so much for joining us today for a presentation on My Kid Has an Eating Disorder, Help, Supporting Your Loved One at Any Age. My name is Molly, and I'm one of the managers of mission initiatives here at the National Eating Disorders Association. I am so thrilled to welcome you all here. And before we get started, I just like to share a little bit about the National Eating Disorders Association and the work that we do. NEDA is a nonprofit organization that is working to fundamentally change the way that eating disorders are understood and treated, and to empower those affected to achieve lasting well-being and recovery through campaigns like National Eating Disorders Awareness Week and through our Campus Warriors program and community events. We are working to increase public understanding of these complex disorders. We also provide information and resources through the Grace Howland Cosine Resource Center, as well as through our educational programs like the Understanding Eating Disorders presentation and webinars like this one. Additionally, we promote early intervention through our screening tool, which has helped over 1 million people and is now available in English and Spanish. And we have also invested in groundbreaking research to help develop effective treatments. If you'd like to support our work and more webinars like this, I will be posting our donation link in the chat later on. So let me just switch slides. I'd now like to introduce our presenters, Alli Spotts-De Lazzer and Jenny Mullaney. Alli is an author, speaker, and educator. Her credentials include licensed marriage and family therapist, licensed professional clinical counselor, and certified eating disorders specialist. Drawing from both professional expertise and personal recovery, Alli offers a uniquely informed and compassionate perspective on eating disorders. She is the author of Meaningful, 23 Life-Changing Stories of Conquering Dieting, Weight, and Body Image Issues, writes a column for Psychology Today, and has contributed to academic journals and professional publications. Alli has also co-authored committees for co-chaired committees for the Academy of Eating Disorders and the International Association of Eating Disorders Professionals, presented workshops for universities, hospitals, and clinical training facilities, and been quoted in media outlets, including the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, and she's also run a family and friends support group since 2011. Jenny is a certified eating disorders recovery coach and has her own lived experience with recovery from an eating disorder. Since 2017, her certification and coaching practice has been supervised directly by world-renowned eating disorder expert Carolyn Costin. Jenny is one of the few coaches worldwide who is hired to live at home with clients during various stages of recovery, serving both as a provider and family ally. She is also a published author with a chapter in Andrea Michaels' Tribe of Light, How Community Helps Us Heal. So if you have any questions during this presentation, please add them to the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom window, and I will relay them to Jenny and Alli at the end of the presentation. Please also be sure to indicate whether your question is for Alli or Jenny so the appropriate person can respond. And I will now turn it over to Alli to get us started, and I will stop presenting so she can do that.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay. Give me a sec. Let's see how that is. And did I get it? Yes. Okay. Thank you, everyone who came to My Kid Has an Eating Disorder, Help, Supporting Your Loved One of Any Age. Appreciate you being here. Setting the stage. I could set the stage if I could read it, but our pictures are over it. So you might be wondering why a therapist and a recovery coach are presenting together. It's not exactly something you see every day. In short, a therapist is a licensed professional who focuses on clinical care. That's things like assessment, diagnosis, and treatment. A recovery coach offers non-clinical support such as hands-on, in the moment help with daily challenges and follow through. And Jenny's going to talk a lot more about that in the second half. In short, when each role stays within its lane, collaboration can be really powerful, and combining clinical and coaching perspectives can strengthen support systems and sometimes make treatment more effective. Our shared goal today is to offer you ideas and tools that may help you support your child of any age through an eating disorder journey, and to show you how these roles, recovery coach and therapist, are distinct yet complementary. For this first half, I'll be speaking from the clinical perspective, drawing from therapy work, parent group discussions, and real-life experiences. And because this is for NEDA, I'll also highlight a few of the NEDA resources so that you have them at your fingertips. Sometimes it can be really hard to find everything when you're getting so much information at you, so I will definitely highlight some of the NEDA spaces. Today, for part 1 and for part 2, parent is interchangeable with caregiver, just so you know, for the vocabulary. And when we say kid or child, we mean minor to adult. Also, if we say eating disorders, we are probably lumping together anorexia nervosa, ARFID, binge eating disorder, bulimia nervosa, and OSFID for today. And now, here's the quick but necessary official part. This presentation is for general educational purposes only and is not a substitute for therapy, medical, or other professional advice. Even if something sounds prescriptive or directive, which it probably will at some point because passion, just happens, but we are not telling you what to do. Neither of us is your provider, and for any medical or mental health decisions, we encourage you to consult a qualified professional. Each of us will speak from our own professional lens, Jenny as a recovery coach and me as a therapist, and each is responsible for our own content and statements. And finally, there is no way to teach anyone how to help their child in an hour. Still, I hope that something resonates. This brief time together may leave you with questions. As Molly just said, feel free at the end. And if it does, also as you're thinking about it, hopefully you've got a treatment team to talk to, maybe a caregiver support group, and you'll have our contact information to reach out to us too. Your love and influence matter, parents and caregivers. As a therapist, I spend usually about an hour, maybe 2 hours with your kid. That leaves 166 to 167 hours per week of other influences, including you, especially if they live at home. So with you and your love as part of the team, echoing and bookending messaging and supporting recovery spaces, that can provide a really powerful container for healing. Here's the first of 2 common questions I receive. So if you don't mind participating a little bit, please sit back. It's an empathy exercise I use to help people to get a feel for what it's like to have an eating disorder. Warning, it might feel uncomfortable. Okay. I'd like you to think of your last 24 hours and really wrap your brain around, have I been anywhere where food was not readily available, purchasable, or accessible? And that means within a few feet or easily gettable. I'll give you about 15 seconds. Okay, 12. Next, please think of something that you are terrified of. Terrified. Maybe it's snakes, rats, spiders. Think of that. And if you can't find something that you're terrified of, that is okay. But please try to find something you're incredibly uncomfortable around at least. Maybe that's heights, maybe it's closed spaces, maybe it's your in-laws, I don't know. But find that. Okay, now that you've got that, I want you to go to that 24 hours and all of those food exposures, all of those places where food were so available, close by, all of that, replace it with your phobia, your fear. It's not that you have to have a phobia with it, but what terrifies you. And each time the exposure is just as harsh, just as scary, just as terrifying. On top of that, 4 to 6 times a day, you have to eat your exposure, whatever that thing is. For me, it would be tarantulas. So 4 to 6 times a day now, I also have to eat the tarantulas. I go to the gas station. I reach over to pay. I've got to reach over tarantulas. There's food everywhere. And then you've got parties where your friends are like, "Oh my gosh, that tarantula is so delicious. I love that tarantula. Let's organize this whole event around tarantulas," if that was your fear. When you start to think about it as just a human being, not even a diagnosis or anything, you can kind of see how it could take over someone wanting to avoid, wanting to circumvent, but you got to be with the people. Like, there's so much that comes into it that even without the official disorder piece, I can imagine you could see how it could take over someone's life. And I want to thank you very much for doing that exercise. It's brave. Second question I get asked often is, why can't they just eat normally? Why can't they just eat the burger? I get it. I get it. And I'm actually not going to look at, I don't want to talk about the psychological pieces right now. Often when I'm working with parents, I see that what kind of clicks tends to be the more biological side. And so just to kind of highlight, and they're going to be way oversimplified, but just to highlight some of the ways that we get they self-perpetuate, they maintain, eating disorders keep going. For example, as as you repeat the attitudes and the behaviors, your brain can actually flip it into a habit. Again, totally oversimplified, but think about how hard it is for us to break a habit. Some people, instead of feeling hanger or getting kind of rough when they get hungry, sometimes they get really calm. And so it makes them possibly more vulnerable to wanting to stay empty. If it feels good, why wouldn't we want to stay empty? So that can self-perpetuate more restriction. Binging, the Ansel Keys study showed us when we undereat, by the end of the day, so I wake up and I don't eat enough, I don't eat enough, I don't eat enough. And then at night, I way overeat. Maybe I binge. But here's the thing, and I don't even mean, oh, what's overeat, but you eat in that space where you feel out of control. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I've got no willpower, blah, blah, blah. There's actually biologically driven binges because our bodies like to stay regulated. There's all sorts of systems in there to keep it kind of going in a steady pace. And so sometimes people don't realize that it's not willpower. Your body was like, no, I'm not going to do this. I want you to eat more. And so it does what it needs to do to kind of not cause a binge, but kind of. Again, oversimplified. And then sometimes during eating disorders, the brain actually changes. And then finally, just to mention the examples, the reward system. There's an interplay between binging, purging, restricting, and the reward system that likely keeps the cycle going for some people. So it's not just eat a burger. It's not, they can do this if they just choose to. I mean, wow, I just opened up a whole thing there. Just know that it's not as easy as just eat normally. 3 Q&As. Looking at time, great. 3 Q&As. For those who are new to experiencing a child with an eating disorder, which the title may have brought some in, I want to make sure that we address that, or that I address that. And 3 tips for those at any stage of experiencing a child with an eating disorder. And before I move forward, because I imagine there are parents and caregivers attending, I just want to say, you are not a bad parent if you feel like you're stumbling, you're stuck, or you're trying to avoid the crunch of the eggshells. It's kind of natural for this illness and how it affects families. Starting at the beginning, question number 1, my kid has an eating disorder, help. What do I do now? First, take a long exhale. Get medical on your radar. because this is one of those unique psychological illnesses that also pairs up with physical and medical consequences. Not all medical providers are trained in eating disorders, so want to introduce some resources here. Academy for Eating Disorders produces Eating Disorders, A Guide to Medical Care, and it's the purple booklet. It used to be written by doctors for doctors. I believe it still is, but it helps on the medical piece, helps understand it, and helps to communicate with physicians. Need a Parent Toolkit has a lot of really good parent-friendly information about the medical piece. And then many people comment and have commented about how helpful a book called Sick Enough by Jennifer Gaudiani is. So those three resources hopefully can support you and connect. If you can, connect with support groups, with professionals. The more that you can learn about this intensely complex disorder that doesn't have a lot of consensus and agreement, even on best standards, I think the more empowered you will feel. Question number 2, who are the members of a multidisciplinary team and why? Eating disorders affect medical, nutritional, psychological. For anyone who knows how to braid, braid them because they are so intertwined, whatever the word is. The standard of care via guidelines recommends that providers cover the areas the eating disorder affects. So that typically means mental health therapist, primary care physician, maybe nurse practitioner, maybe physician assistant, dietitian or certified nutrition specialist, and possibly a psychiatrist. Additions are adjunctive and case by case, but that's kind of the core team that's recommended. However, even though standard of care recommends the 3 providers, not all approaches actually use a full team. So if you're working with a team that is not a full team, feel free to ask why. Just understanding it can help you gain more understanding of the process that your loved one is actually going through. And if you cannot find a full team, there can be creative workarounds. Specialists, other parents, many people have been through this, people with lived experience. Often people are very, very generous about sharing their experiences. Collaborative treatment for anyone supporting treatment. That means you, the clinical team, a coach. On the left, when we're all aligned and we're all working together and we all have some good communication and understanding, it can feel kind of like driving. You know, stuff can happen, but like you got the lanes, everybody's got their rules, and there's still moments of stuff. But then when you're not aligned and you don't have the information, a lot of times it feels like the picture on the right. And anyone who lives in LA and hikes probably knows where this is. Question number 3. How do I find a qualified professional? Regarding how you find that qualified professional, professionals are not always trained in eating disorders. Some go through school and get very little, sometimes even no training in eating disorders. That's nutrition, that's medical, that's mental health. So you want vetting is interviewing, really asking them, even if they check specialist, specialist is not a protected term. So you are probably going to want to ask questions. And Nita has put together a lovely handout. There is the title. Here are some of the questions. You'll have this video on YouTube, so you can always stop it and read, but you can just pull this up off of Nita's website. As we transition into the tips, an eating disorder can feel frightening. Please don't lose sight of what matters to you and for your family. The eating disorder, not your child, but the eating disorder's influence, can put an otherwise communicative house on eggshells and turn family dynamics upside down, can challenge your own relationship with food, size, body, and health, can change your relationships to celebrations. For example, if you live in the United States, we've got a big celebration coming up in a week that a lot of people are excited about, but people with eating disorders might feel really, really scared about. I'll briefly touch on those 3 points. Tip number 1, step off the eggshells. Many parents have discovered that what helps to step off the eggshells is actually exposing themselves to the eggshells more, but in a different and thoughtful way. For example, by focusing on curiosity over avoidance or obeying the eating disorder's influence might be helpful. Um, Things like, I'm curious, can you tell me about blah, blah, blah? I'm wondering, blah, blah, blah. Is that correct? I'm imagining, blah, blah, blah. Is that correct? Your kid may not have words to answer. Maybe they can't label their emotions. Maybe they don't want to talk about. Still, you asked. And genuine curiosity can help with developing words, labeling their emotions potentially. And sometimes they even catch their own dissonance, or they'll even catch something like the eating disorder influence was bringing up for them. So curiosity. And then also about avoiding discomfort, theirs or yours. That often leads to more stuck and crunch, believe it or not. Importantly, you have a right to your feelings and experiences. A lot of times parents kind of like don't let themselves have their own experience of emotionally what's going on for them. And I just want to say, you're having a real experience too. Finally, no one has the right to be abusive. Not your kid, not the eating disorder's influence, and not you. Structural family therapy. There's an executive subsystem, and I bring this picture in because it's so like when you look at the pyramid, and on top, in structural family therapy, the concept is basically the executive system at the top keeps order, and that's the kind of the bosses or the parent or parents. And while parents are simply trying to do the right thing, often when someone has an eating disorder in their house, the eating disorder ends up on top, as you can see in the picture of the green, either with one parent or on its own, and the parents are underneath. So let me give you a couple of helpful phrases that you might consider using. If you have a one-parent household, kid comes up, asks you a question, demands you go shopping, demands you, but whatever it is, let me think about that. That's one. Two-parent household. Let me talk with your mother, father, partner, partners first. My, you know what I mean? Your mother, father, my partner, those type of things first. Because what happens is it creates space for thoughtfulness sometimes and space for breaking patterns, potentially. Permission to Parent. This is a resource that was from years ago on Feast, and it is still up. It is still free. It talks about boundaries, your rights, phrases to help with your boundaries, touches on structural family therapy a little bit, but honestly, it really focuses more on like, who do you want to be as a parent, and how do you do that when your kid has an eating disorder? Because I just have so much respect for parents trying to balance all of it. Tip number 2. Explore our size and health biases. And I say our because we're all raised in society. And so even if we think we don't have any biases, I know we're not supposed to use absolutes, but I think we all do. There's a great, I really very much appreciate this video. It's called Poodle Science on YouTube. It's an under 3-minute watch. It's super straightforward. And I'm going to give you the summary in a nutshell, basically. So in the world, if the world were dogs and the poodles DMI, not BMI, dog MI, I know, so silly. So if the poodle's DMI, dog mass index, is determined to be the ideal weight to height ratio, what if you're a Great Dane? What if you're a Chihuahua? What if you're a Bull Mastiff? But no, we all have to have that match to be normal or healthy. We all have to have the poodles. Please notice if you had a reaction to that, because that may indicate there's some stuff going on inside just to work through. It's really, the biases that we have inside can be really complex and hidden quite deep, and guised even sometimes as goodness and health. Okay, I won't get off topic. Meaningful. This is a book I wrote partially to help people understand eating disorders through diverse healing stories, because the subjective experience of an eating disorder is pretty hard to understand for people who don't have them. So also this book gently introduces concepts such as anti-diet, weight neutral, weight inclusive, intuitive eating. And those are some key concepts as your person's going through recovery. Those are kind of field wide, and many, many, many people use them. if you don't, forget the book, podcasts, books, anything that says those words is probably going to be beneficially educational for you, is my prediction. Tip number 3, navigate, pace the holidays. Now, I say this, I made up this acronym for today. The holidays can be stressful both to those with eating disorders and for those who love them, as many of you probably know. Depending on your relationship and their openness, any one or all of the following might help for the PACE acronym. And so what it is plan. Plan for difficult situations during the holiday. The holidays are already tense often. So plan. Let's say that your kid has a sensitivity to sounds and eating sounds like misophonia. Well, sitting them next to the aunt or grandpa who is known for smacking that's planning, thinking about those things. Acknowledge. Sometimes I think we all want to be seen. Often it's nice just to acknowledge the potential stress. I can imagine today's going to be really hard for you. Even if they're like, it's not. You still saw something and you saw them potentially. So I just think that's nice. Acknowledge the potential. Oh, I'm sorry. Ask. Ask if they know what might be supportive and what you or they can do. Meaning, maybe there's something that can help them out just a little bit while they're struggling at the table and it's a holiday or something where they don't want to make a scene. I think that there's often a way to have these discussions. Also, the C, change. Change the subject if necessary while dining or eating. Dining and eating can be pretty hard anyway, but then if we have relatives who are talking about who's changed weight in celebrities, Ozempic this, maybe they're talking about, oh, how full they are. That can be really hard on someone with an eating disorder. And there's really lovely conversation topics, cards that you can even put on the table or come up with something to ask. If it might support all of you to have a better evening, it's lovely to have ways that you can change the subject, but do so graciously or not so graciously, however your family works. You know what I mean. And then experiment. Here's the thing, from about 20 years of working in this field at this point, my belief is you won't and you can't necessarily get it right, so you're off the hook. Experiment, gather data, and hopefully that helps lead you down paths that feel more productive. Jenny, I'm watching the time. None of us can know what we don't know. Ideas to help you support your child any age you love who has an eating disorder are read, watch, and listen, just like right now. Join and attend support groups for carers, friends, family. You can find those through NEDA's website. They have quite a few links on there, but it's eating disorders often stay silent and alone, and yet the community can be so helpful and so supportive for many, not for all, but for many. Also, please address long-standing myths, such as the 9 truths about eating disorders. If you are not familiar with it, NEDA, I believe, has it downloadable because they're one of the endorsers. But the 9 truths about eating disorders is an example of a rare consensus in the field that science supports too. You can read it on your own time, but many parents hold guilt like they caused the eating disorder. So I think it's really important to read at least right now, number 2. Families are not to blame and can be the patient and provider's best allies in treatment. At this time, cause probably matters way less than getting your house protective of recovery. That really matters. And you can loop back to these myths online. To finish this out, book informational consultations with specialists if you can, just to learn. And as mentioned earlier, the Grace Holland Cozine Resources Center, you don't always know when you need resources, but as things come up, this space has so many informational pieces to offer you, and you just may not know that you need them. So I would say, please keep checking in on that to support yourself. And hopefully your child and their treatment provider, treatment professionals and team will include you at some level in the healing process. Those are all the references from today. Aha, I ended on time. Thank you for your time and attention. And with that, I will turn it over to Jenny and for her to continue the next section. I'm stopping sharing.
All right. Can everyone see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I will be continuing with part two. Since recovery coaching is a relatively new addition to the field, I want to share a little bit about what a coach does. So coaches help with the practical day-to-day aspects of recovery. We're talking meal and snack support, food exposures, grocery shopping, sometimes shopping for new clothes because bodies can change in recovery, closet clean out, tech support in real time, and more. For coaching, the focus is on the here and now, and coaches are an adjunct to, not placement of the clinical team. And I go so far as to make sure that the clients I'm working with are working with a therapist and a dietitian. So part of the team supplementing, not replacing. Coaching, one of the reasons I'm super passionate about it is because coaches are helping bridge the gap between treatment and real life, where they're outside of an office setting, in real time, doing the hands-on help. And a lot of clients and their parents have shared that coaching has been a really helpful tool in helping break the cycle of treatment, discharge, relapse, repeat, because we know recidivism rates in eating disorders treatment are really high. So you might be wondering, what kind of training do coaches have? Unfortunately, anyone can call themselves a coach. And however, for me personally, I was trained through the Carolyn Costin Institute. It was a rigorous 12-module course culminating in an internship phase supervised by Carolyn herself. The course was designed to take a year, even though students can work at their own pace, and there are exams along the way to measure mastery of concepts. Continuing education units are also required to keep my certification current. And also important to note, it's a certificate, not a license. So there's no governing board or agency. So you want to make especially sure before working with a coach that you're vetting and asking questions and making sure they have some sort of training and experience. For me, I have some past clients and parents who are even willing to talk with prospective clients to share their experience and sort of vouch for me and the work that we've done together. So if you are feeling how this woman looks, you're not alone. I love what Alli said earlier about the other 176 or 67, sorry, dyslexia, hours. And that can be a lot of pressure to place on parents. And this is why having a coach on the team could be helpful. Parents come to me saying things like, I'm exhausted. I don't get what my child's going through. I love my kid, but I need a break. I can't sit through another meal and snack. And these are real things parents say to me, loving, dedicated, well-meaning parents. So if you've felt this way, totally understandable. You're not alone. And this is why coaches can be helpful. They can be a family ally. They can help take the pressure off parents. Especially in my work as a live-in coach, I'm in a unique position to get a look at the home in real time and be a liaison to the clinical team, so that the clinical team can see the full picture outside of an office setting. And also as a bonus, a lot of coaches are recovered themselves, and so they get it in a way that parents can't if they haven't been through it themselves. And important note, some coaches work only with the client or your child. Some coaches are parent coaches, and some, like me, do a little bit of both, especially when I'm in the home environment. So we've thrown out the term recovered, or I just threw it out. And there's really no universal definition or unanimous agreement of the field of what that means. I personally subscribe to Carolyn Costin's definition. She's been a pioneer in the eating disorder space, opened the first treatment center with a residential license, and now has the Carolyn Costin Institute, where she trains coaches to do what I do. And so her definition is about when the person can accept his or her natural body shape and size and no longer has a self-destructive relationship with food or exercise. When you're recovered, food and weight take a proper perspective in your life, and actual numbers are of little or no importance at all. When you're recovered, You'll not compromise your health or betray your soul to look a certain way, wear a certain size, or reach a certain number on the scale. When you're recovered, you do not use eating disorder behaviors to deal with, distract from, or cope with other problems. And if you're thinking that's like, wow, pretty high in the pie in the sky definition compared to where your kid is right now, I want to assure you that full recovered is possible. I consider myself recovered. Alli considers herself recovered, and we know hundreds of other people who can consider themselves recovered as well. So yes, there is hope, and research backs that up. It shows that your child can fully heal and get to the point where they're indistinguishable from other people who have never even had an eating disorder, which I think is pretty cool. For me and a lot of my clients, we've had a complete value shift. We've hit the unsubscribe button when it comes to diet culture. When I refer to diet culture, I'm talking about society's emphasis on thinness, weight loss, restrictive eating practice, or exercise for the sake of controlling one's body shape and size. So we can't control or eradicate diet culture, unfortunately, but familial culture can be an antidote to diet culture. Your attitudes, comments, and behaviors can activate, amplify, and align with eating disorder thinking or challenge it. Back to Alli's 167 hours, you as parents are in a unique position to have a profound influence. So I think this is a good opportunity to sort of check in and reflect, like, are you influenced by diet culture? And, important side note, I think it's nearly impossible to live in this world and not be influenced by diet culture to some extent. So as I go into this next series of reflective questions, I want you all to think about maybe a phrase or thought that you've had in the past that potentially aligns with diet culture and or the way someone's eating disorder might think. And if you're brave enough, put it in the chat along with a reframe that either neutralizes the thought or says it in a way that would help propel someone's recovery. So here's some self-reflective questions about your relationship to food. How do I talk about food? Am I flexible or do I have rigid rules? Am I preoccupied with food? What and when I'm going to eat next? Do my words give food neutrality, like all foods fit and there are no bad foods? Or do my words give food moral value, like labeling foods as healthy, unhealthy, good, or bad? When it comes to movement and exercise, do I have stringent practices? Do I feel upset when I miss a workout? Is exercise a means to earn or burn off food? Do I say I'm bad if I don't exercise? Do I say I'm good if I do? Would I be doing this exercise even if it didn't burn any calories or change my body shape or size? And that's a question I ask clients to check in around movement, because if it's truly not coming from the eating disorder, there would be no drive to change body shape or size through the exercise. So it's kind of a good way to reflect about where it's coming from, the eating disorder self or the person's healthy self. And when I say eating disorder self and healthy self, I'm talking about the two parts inside someone that are like at war and having this battle. The eating disorder part that is doing all these behaviors that don't really seem in alignment with your person, and then the healthy self that wants to get better, that wouldn't suggest what they're doing to anyone else. And that's really where the work is, right? So it's not about you battling it out with your child. It's about supporting their healthy self so it can get big and strong enough to take over the eating disorder self. When it comes to body image, these are some things to think about. How do I talk about my body or other people's bodies? Do I feel preoccupied or distressed by my shape, size, or weight? Do I talk about bodies in a way that objectifies them? Do I express desirability and undesirability about bodies? Do I comment on weight gain or compliment weight loss? So I'll just give you a second to, if you're brave, put a thought that or a statement you've had before and a reframe in the chat. So I think one of the biggest, if not the biggest, things I do to help clients is meal support. And that is something you can do with your child at home. We'll probably need to do if you live with your child. So here are some things to think about and ways to approach meal support, which is necessary for recovery. So before the meal, you're definitely going to want to connect with their dietitian if they have one. Familiarize yourself with their meal plan. This may require a signed consent form from your child, depending on their age and the state that you live in. Decide beforehand who's going to be, decide beforehand who's going to be plating the food and what's going to be served, and set a time frame for the meal. Especially if pace is a challenge, you're going to want to talk about this with your child beforehand and decide, are you going to give them reminders throughout the meal? And if so, how often? Like we're halfway there, you have 10 minutes. Decide beforehand if supplement will be offered after time is up, and get clear on the guidelines about supplementation from their dietitian. Avoid difficult conversations right before or during the meal or snack. Wait until after. I see this happen a lot in my work as a live-in, where there's some pressing like issue happening and mom and dad want to address it, and then dinner goes to, I won't say the word. So wait for difficult conversations till after the meal. And make an agreement about observation time, which sometimes we refer to as OBS. So especially if your child struggles with purging or exercise after a meal, you want to make sure you're there afterwards to help contain that. And something else to think about is assess what kind of support they need at meals, meaning do they need mindfulness during support or distraction? I notice for some of my clients who are newer to recovery, they need distraction during meals. They just need to get through the meal. So that could look like playing a table game or using a device or watching a favorite show, talking about something riveting but completely unrelated to the food. Mindfulness is about tuning into your hunger and fullness cues, noticing taste, texture, smells, colors, aesthetics, identifying sensations or feelings that arise and talking through them in the moment. And like I said, for some people, that's just too much in the beginning. And over time, usually people can warm up and start incorporating more mindfulness, sometimes even asking at the beginning of the meal, what do you need? Even if they say distraction, that is an entree-vous to mindfulness because they're forced to sort of check in with what they need. During the meal, here's some do's and don'ts to keep in mind. And if you have any other do's and don'ts of your own that you've found in supporting your loved one, feel free to drop those in the chat too for other parents to see. Keep the conversation light. Eat with them. If it's a new or fear food, have the same food. Just show them that it's okay. Like, you can do this too. Role model enjoyment, especially if it feels genuine. And role model completion if you can, because that's what we're trying to get them to do. Avoid talking about food, calories, macros, sugar content, any of that stuff. Avoid talking about bodies, exercise, diets, how much you ate prior or how little you ate prior, heavy conversations, future meals and snacks, how full you are, and plans to compensate for the meal afterwards. And I realize that's a lot of don'ts. Don't be overwhelmed. Another don't. With time and practice, it becomes more natural. And you know what? If you mess up and say something that you think, ooh, that probably wasn't helpful, even just naming it, saying, oh gosh, I'm sorry, like bleep, like rewind, redo, just naming it can even help. Some other ideas, possibly sit in the mud with them. It's not always about trying to fix it and trying to make them feel better. Phrases like, this is hard, yeah, this does suck, I'm right here with you, versus trying to just make it better. Encourage them without coercion or threats. You can do hard things. I believe in you. You're stronger than you know. And validating, but without letting them off the hook. Like, the only way through is eating the food. Food is medicine. It will get easier. After the meal, this can be a crucial time for a lot of people. Check in, ask if they want to share any thoughts or feelings that come up, ask if there was anything that was helpful or unhelpful. If they really just don't want to talk about it, it's fine to lean into distraction, getting out of the house, visiting with a friend, doing something fun. That can be helpful too. And then for other people, or if they're further along, doing a mindful activity like processing, journaling, doing some of that eating disorder, healthy self dialogue, that inner battle that I was talking about, it can help people to sort of talk from both sides of self. A good question to elicit someone's healthy self is usually, what would you say to a friend? That gets a little more space for the healthy self to get talking. So as your child is going along in recovery, there's something that I do with clients that I consider more advanced meal support work. And that helps prepare people for more challenging or triggering circumstances, because unfortunately, we can't live in a cocoon forever. Diet culture is real and strong, and hard situations are going to come up throughout the recovery. But again, like I said, reserve for when your child's getting stronger in their recovery and they don't need as much cocooning. It's best to do this with a provider, parent, or friend that they really trust. And this is key. They agree to participate in the more challenging exposure. You're not just like throwing it at them in the moment, unless it's like agreed upon previously that like something's going to pop up this week that's hard. It can be things like they don't know what's going to be served, or, like intentionally including diet talk in the conversation as if you're like their crazy aunt that does that at Thanksgiving or something like that. Some grounding metaphors that are helpful in my work as a live-in coach that might be helpful for you, because I can relate to having to contain the other 167 hours of the week. Even though it's not the same in parenting, it gives me a lot of empathy for you all. Don't get on the roller coaster with them. Sit down at the bottom. Like, let them ride the roller coaster, wait for them to come off, and better yet, if we're going to continue the metaphor, wait for them at the concession stand to have a snack. Stay your color. If things are really tense in the household, think about a color that resonates with you. When you start to feel yourself get pulled in other directions, going back to your color. Another thing that's helpful for me is thinking of a cloak around me, especially if someone's eating disorder gets really mean or angry, to protect you from the daggers that they're throwing. And just thinking about going back to your breath, sometimes even a hand on the heart, or, imagining breathing in and cleansing out all the fear, anxiety, or uncomfortable emotions that are happening. And lastly, self-care. One of my favorite things to support parents in doing, especially when I'm doing live-ins and give them a break, things that help me when I'm doing live-in work: prioritizing sleep, incorporating enjoyable movement, taking time for meditation, phoning friends, my own therapy, time off, all these sorts of things. And I'd say most importantly, community. So I'm connecting with other coaches or getting supervision. And so for you parents, that could be in the form of a parent support group and other parents who get it. And that's all from me. I hope I didn't go over time.
You did perfectly. Well, I mean, a few minutes, but I feel like perfect. And we do have a question. Yes, the slides will be sent after the presentation. It varies, but yeah, you will be getting it. Are there any other questions? I don't see any in the Q&A section, and we have some time, so please go ahead and add them.
I did not know the slides would be sent. I'm so happy I just redid mine because they were.
Oh, sorry. I meant I was thinking the recording. I misspoke.
Okay.
I was like, wow. Recording, and I'm sorry, guys.
How are you gonna do that, Molly?
I meant the recordings. The recording will be sent eventually, not the slide deck. I'll
let Alli take that one, even though it doesn't say.
What'd you say?
Yeah, I do see. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'll let Alli take what do you guys think about FBT, even though it doesn't say to who. I let you take that one.
Oh, you know what? FBT is first of all, it's the evidence-based treatment. There's certain parameters for it. And if your child fits the parameters well, it's the only thing right now that we really have as a frontline treatment. So typically kind of the attitude is try it. And if there's not improvement, what gets missed, I think a lot is if there's not improvement from after month 1 or 2, move on to something else, I believe is the quote. And I don't mean to, I'm not trying to sound like I'm giving treatment, but there's a specific parameter and it's actually much shorter than I hear. Like I'll meet people who are like, I've been doing FBT for a year and it's not helping. And I'm like, why are we still doing it? So here's the deal. When it comes to healing, we are so similar and individual, and each family has its own family values. I don't know what's going to work for your family, but if something doesn't work, there are more things to keep trying and trying. As long as your kid is alive, this is my belief. As long as the kid's alive, there's always something else to try.
Thank you, Alli. We do have some questions coming in. So someone is asking about the book and wondering if it's including all this information or more than the information that you already shared.
What book? Which one?
They're understanding that they want to know, they said, do I understand that you two have written a book including all this information? Possibly a lot more.
I'll turn that one over to Jenny.
Yes, Alli and I have co-authored a book that will be available come August 2026, and it's all of this and more.
Wonderful, very exciting. Okay, so I'm not seeing who these questions are directed to. So just a reminder, if people can add who the question is directed to. For this next one, it's talking about resources. So I guess you can decide among yourselves who to answer it. But for adult children above 18 years of age, what resources are there for talking to them about starting recovery again?
That's a hard one. Oh, Alli, was that to me?
Yeah.
Okay. It can be really, because it can be a really difficult thing when your child's over 18. It depends. If the child is over 18 but still financially dependent on some way, I'm not suggesting making threats or coercions, but sometimes there have to be consequences or incentives in order to encourage someone to pursue recovery. So if, for example, this is a college age kid, something like saying, you need to be keeping yourself safe in order for us to pay for college, would be a very reasonable boundary to set in order to encourage them to move towards recovery, or at least seek some sort of treatment that will keep them alive long enough to want recovery for themselves.
Thank you, Jenny. The next question, perhaps Alli can answer. How to present to a teen who doesn't want to get rid of her disorder for fear of gaining weight?
I'm not sure what you mean by how to present, but what I can take from what was just shared, part of the eating disorder is not wanting to gain weight. So what they want only makes their disorder deeper, harder, more embedded. So kind of understanding that that's one of the tricky pieces of working with eating disorders is the denial, or not denial, but the unawareness, the denial, the inability to really understand the risk. Wait, Molly, because I'm so tired right now. Molly, will you repeat the question? There was something I was thinking.
Sure. It's so like, how do you present to a teen who doesn't want to get rid of their disorder because they're fearful of gaining weight?
Well, the first thing is what I was just saying is kind of accepting that piece. And probably one of the things that I would start with as a clinician is being like, yeah. You know what? I really understand how that's part of the disorder. I get that. And what life do you want? What life do you want to live? And if they're like, I want to be super skinny, and then you kind of go down, you can this is a little bit therapeutic, but like, what life do they want to live? Do they want to be active? Do they want to have friends? Well, that's really hard if your body's not letting you be full with fuel and energy. So that's kind of where I would start chipping away at really gently as a therapist. I'm not saying do therapy. Remember, today is psychoeducational. I'm doing all this ethics work right now.
Something, Alli, I believe I think I got this from you, was saying like, as a parent, my job is to keep you safe. And so, especially if they're a teen and under 18, like your job is to keep them safe. So if that means the regular doctor's appointments, the seeing a therapist, like they can come out of treatment and relapse all they want, but your job is still to keep them safe.
It's you know, it goes back to the executive subsystem and all of that stuff. Your job is still to be a parent. Just because the eating disorder's in the house, it doesn't take away all the jobs of being a parent. And that's so hard to balance, you guys. I get it. I see it. And thanks for saying that, Jenny. I was very happy.
Well, we have a few more minutes if anybody has any other questions. I'm seeing a lot of positive comments, so very much appreciated from the audience.
Oh, Molly, were there any reframes that people dropped in the?
I did not see any, no.
Maybe people got shy. It's okay.
Okay.
I think it's a lot, you know, just kind of validating right now. If I'm just thinking about the intensity of, you know, the title is like, my kid has an eating disorder, help. Right now, you guys may be in that spot where you're just starting to collect information, and it is so intensely overwhelming. And then the lack of consensus and the amount of people who are like, well, this is the way, and this, I mean, the overwhelm that can come along with discovering your child does have an eating disorder. It's not surprising to me that people are not having questions. Like, please just take an exhale, take it in. It's a ride.
One question did come up as sort of a follow-up to the adult child, wondering if there are any other suggestions for getting her into care when now that she's just out of college.
Yes. Jenny, can I take it?
No.
I would strongly invite you to get into parent groups. There are so many, God, like the creativity, the knowledge of laws. I mean, the amount, some of the, you guys are so freaking resourceful and dedicated. It is beautiful. And I think that how you get your answers to what you're wanting to learn about, experiment with, is surrounding yourself with other parents who have been in that position.
Okay. Any other questions before we wrap up for the night? Thank you so much, Alli and Jenny, for being here. I feel like the audience got so much out of it. I know I did. And I feel so privileged that we get to share this with our community. And we're looking forward to your book. Okay, so I have posted our information in the chat, and you'll be directed to a survey once the webinar ends. And we would love any feedback you have to, improve upon these programming. So just thank you so much for being here, and take care.
Molly, thank you for providing these and for inviting us. Thank you.
Very happy to have you. Okay.
Yeah,
Good night, everybody.
Take
Bye.
care.